Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday edition of Woodbine Racing Live. Chad Rosema here with special guest Adriano Sorella. Welcome, buddy.
Thank you.
Appreciate you braving the elements outside and making the trip here. I know we got here just in the nick of time, appreciate having you here. First things first, it was recently announced that next month you're going to be at the Dan Patch Awards.
That's right.
Accepting a co-recipient of the President's Award for your efforts of things you do to promote the sport, of course, and we'll talk more about that in depth. But first off, how did that make you feel?
It was pretty good, actually. It was a little bit of a surprise when I got the call, and they said that I was going to get this award. And at the beginning you're a little bit shocked because you think people don't really see some of the stuff that you're doing, and you kind of I do the things I do for myself. So to get something like this, to have an award like this, and being presented this award at the Dan Patch is kind of special.
And a trip to Florida,
yeah,
right? It'll be fun to go there. Anytime you can get away to Florida in the winter, things are going all right. So obviously, the big efforts you've been going on lately. If you haven't heard, you must have been under a rock. But Jimmy Freight, everywhere you turn, you see this name Jimmy Freight right now. Before we get into the aggressive marketing with him, because I don't know that any stud have I ever seen a stud be marketed as aggressively as he has with Winback, and you're just doing a great job with that. Everybody's talking about it. But let's go back to the beginnings with Jimmy Freight. I know you had Vegas Vacation. That was such a huge thrill, right, to win the big races that you did with him. But Jimmy Freight was just different. I mean, here's a $115,000 horse from the Iowa Fair Circuit. First off, how in the world were you convinced to buy a horse for $115,000 US from the Iowa Fair Circuit?
Well, it was actually a deal that fell through for another horse, and I was a little bit upset about it because we worked on it quite a bit. And the same agent called me up and told me about this Jimmy Freight. I've told this story a few times. He said, "Don't go look up his lines yet because he's from Iowa and he's in a small track and his times are not going to be so impressive to you." And while he was talking about him, I looked up his lines, and sure enough, I seen 2 minutes, 2:12, 2:08. And I said to him, I said, are you crazy? I said, I don't think this horse is going to be any good here. And he said, no. He says, I think this is a nice horse for you. And I actually found some videos on Facebook, some Facebook Live shot from a phone, and I watched him. One of the races that I watched him, I said to myself, this horse is pretty good. If we can shave 6-7 seconds off him, he should be all right for the OSS series here. Sure enough, got the deal put together. It wasn't as easy to get that deal put together. We tried tracking these people down, and it was real hard getting a hold of them. We finally did get a hold of him, got the deal done, brought him here within the week, and he wins. He goes out. It was the second gold. We already missed the first one. He goes out and he wins the first gold. At that point, I was like, all right, I think we're okay here.
So you buy him as a son of sports, or obviously staked into nothing. He's an OSS horse. Ultimately, is that what you thought is, I'm going to spend this money and hopefully I get myself a good gold horse?
Right, and that's what it was. Is I thought he would be a good Ontario Sire Stakes horse. And sure enough, that's the reason why I bought him. I figured, you can stake him to a couple little things, but that wasn't the intentions. I didn't, there were so many nice horses when we got him to stay hungry and maybe wasn't courtly at the time, but there was a few of them. Lost in Time was there in that year when he was a 2-year-old, and I thought, we'd be all right for an Ontario Sire Stakes horse, and that's basically what he was staked for at 2. I had no choice because when I got him, he was already staked, and it was only OSS. So we really couldn't race him anywhere else, and he made whatever he made, $180,000, and that's when I realized, hang on a second, we might have something here, going into the 3-year-old year. So it's, I was pretty happy about it.
And then you focus in on that 3-year-old year. So now he goes undefeated in the OSS. It's a champion season for him, award-winning season, Grand Circuit level.
Right.
Like, was there some beach somewhere where now you're thinking, okay, well, wait a minute here. Wait a minute. We've got ourselves more than a gold horse.
Right. It was actually the beach. When we won the Sun Beach somewhere, I said, we have something here. I think that he can compete with these horses that are on the circuit right now, and I was pretty excited about that. And, I started questioning some of the decisions I had made for staking at that point because I started thinking, oh boy, we didn't stake him to the NA Cup, and that's coming, and everybody's talking about Jimmy and some of these other Grand Circuit horses, and I was like, we're not in the NA Cup, so I had to start thinking ahead for the races that were coming up that I could supplement to.
And then, fast forward now to this past season, 4-year-old, and he continued to impress. I mean, now he's up against age horses. I know he held his own in the Gold Cup as a 3-year-old.
Right.
Then he wins it as a 4-year-old, beats McWicked in the Dayton Pacing Derby.
Right.
That's when he sets his life mark, right? 48-1?
His 48-1 mark was here when he beat those horses at McWicked in the
Gold Cup.
That's
okay,
right.
Yeah, and he's the fastest son of sports writer,
That's
richest son of sports writer as well. So proven himself now at the Grand Circuit level. How hard was it for you to say, we are going to stop racing, we're going to go to stud with him?
It's tough because usually when you see horses stop, there's something wrong with them, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with him. And we're kind of one of the first ones that set out to say, hey, we're gonna go to stud. I really, to myself, I always said, if I have a horse that's good enough to go to stud, I want to go to stud. I want to experience that side of the business, and I guess this is something that you're seeing right now with all the different things that I'm doing for Jimmy Freight. But I said, if I had a horse that would go to stud, I wanted to promote him the best way possible using the tools that I have with the advertising company. And that was the case. When the 4-year-old season was about done, I already started thinking about this going to stud, and there was some interest from Ohio, Ontario, and New York. And I wanted to stick to Ontario just because I'm here, and I love the program. I think the OSS program is probably the best program, if not one of the top 2 programs. And I said I wanted to stay here. And when I was able to work out the deal with Winback, I was pretty excited about that. And then all these other horses followed. So you stop and you think to yourself, if we were still racing, we could probably make a lot of money here. But we went that route, and I'm happy I went that way.
There were a lot of great horses that at the end of last year announced they were heading to stud, retiring. He in that group. What has been the reception with him, the interest in him as a stallion?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. So this is all new to me. So you learn something different every day, which is great. But the interest has been fantastic so far, and I've had breeders reaching out for me. Last week, we had a breeder out in the U.S. that reached out, bought into the syndication, is breeding 4 mares to him. So pretty exciting to see when you start seeing some of the Americans drop in and breeding to them. You know that you've done something right, and the horse has done something right. So it's exciting. I have no doubt that he's going to have a full book here pretty soon.
And now let's focus in on your aggressive marketing. That's what you do, right? Did you know, because I've never seen anybody do what you're doing to push this guy. I think everybody in a Tim Hortons or a Dunkin' Donuts at this point is wondering, who's this Jimmy Freight, this famous horse? Because, there have been so many cards going out. Here it is. We've got it on the screen here. Was this stuff that you were already envisioning in your mind before you announced he was retiring, that this was things like this you wanted to do?
Yeah. There's a bunch of other stuff still to come down the pipeline, but
I bet there is.
I do this every day. This is what our company does. We promote other companies, not so much just the Tim Hortons cards and things like that, but it's more the promotion thing. It just comes natural. We know what we're going to do, and so I just apply those things to him. And you don't know if you're going to get an extra breeding out of it or an extra 2 breedings. We don't go into it. I don't go into it with that feeling that I'm going to get an extra 5 breedings. I go into it with the feeling that I'm trying to give back, and I'm promoting the stallion at the same time. I want his name to be out there. It's a branding thing. Everybody knows McDonald's, but you still see the signs all over the highway. And that's what it is. Branding is very important, and it's one of the things that many people don't do. We just seem to brand when it comes time for breeding season or the stallion season or whatever. We just brand those couple of months, but that's everybody doing it at the same time. I feel like I need to approach it a different way, and that's the way I want to do it, where we brand throughout the entire year. We promote the horse. People don't forget who Jimmy Freight is, and he is what he is, but at the same time, I'm going to make sure he's a rock star.
I don't know if there's a place in Mohawk Park here where you can walk around and possibly forget who Jimmy Freight is, because we see his name everywhere. We just saw some great shots in the paddock clad with those awesome banners promoting the Jimmy Freight Stakes, and that'll lead me into that discussion, because now this is a completely new precedent. I can't think of another stakes event where an owner said, I'm gonna put out the money, $100,000 out of my pocket, strictly for horses by this sire, whether it be a colt or a filly, and it'll be for his first foals to hit the track in 2023. Just like I've been asking you with the other advertisement, was this something that you knew, or was this a collaboration with you and some other people that came up with this?
Actually, I wanted to do something big for him. So I wanted to do something special. So I wanted to do something, when I first sat down with Winback to talk about how we're going to promote him, I said, I have a couple ideas. I want to give away a John Deere Gator to one of the people who breed him. So we're going to have a draw. We're going to give away John Deere Gator. And the other thing was I wanted to give away a farm truck to one of the people who buy into the syndication. They thought it was a great idea. I thought it was a great idea. Yeah. And so that's where we're about to head off to. And then I was talking to a buddy of mine down in Florida, and he said to me, you know, it was real cool. He says, back in the 80s, some owner put up $100,000 for offspring of his stallion to have a race. And I said, that's actually not a bad idea. And then I looked into it a little bit, and it was done before the internet. No social media. There was none of this. None of the power that we have right now to promote. It was done, we'll call it back in the day. And so I said, you know, this is a better idea. And I went back to Winback and said, I got an idea. So I'm going to put up $100,000 of my own money. I said, I'll put up the money to promote him, work a deal with WAG and promote him and everything. I'm going to go to WAG and find out if we can do this, and we'll have the Jimmy Freight Stakes. Sure enough, reached out to Jessica Buckley. She thought it was an amazing idea, went through the whole board, all the legal paperwork and all the rest of that stuff, and here we are. And we're going to have the Jimmy Freight Stakes.
I think it's awesome. What amazes me and what makes me feel excited about it is that it was announced so early. Because 2023 is a couple of years away. It just builds that excitement. I'm excited to see the interest in it. And, I mean, for anybody looking to get involved, obviously the main criteria, you've got to have that full be by Jimmy Freight. And you don't have to make a stakes payment. You don't have to make a starting fee. No starting fee. It's just, if there's more than 10, I think you're going on money earned.
We're going to go on money earned. So there's no stakes payments. And that's like one of the best things, because we all buy babies and do all that stuff, and then here comes February and the staking payments start. You get your list from your staking companies and your list of your horses, and it's bang, bang, bang. It's nice to have a race where there's absolutely no staking payments. You don't have to worry about one in February, March, April, May. None of that. You don't have to worry about making an entry fee payment. You have to have one of the top 10 money earners, and you'll be in the Jimmy Freight Stakes. And I think it's great. We'll probably have some more news coming down the pipeline anytime soon, but breed the Jimmy Freight this year, and you got your shot. And I think it's great for the breeders and people buying those horses at the sale. The breeders have just one other thing to help them sell these babies when the time comes that they head off to the sales. And for people buying it, you're already eligible for a race, And for Jimmy, we already know he's going to have a stakes winner. He's going to have $100,000 on his card, on his sire's card already, because we're putting up the money. But at the end of the day, I think it's a win-win situation for everybody.
What one trait, if you could pick one, that Jimmy Freight possessed, would you love to see his offspring inherit?
That's an easy one for me. His quick turn of foot headed into turns. I tell people all the time, watch videos of him when he's racing. He dives into the turns. He doesn't, he never worry about cross-firing or any of the things like that. He throws himself into those turns, and he's very, very good at it. He's just so handy on the track, and his speed off the gate is just, he can get off the gate as fast as anyone. And, that's something you need, especially when you're at a disadvantage in some of those races. And we've seen him. He's been at a disadvantage with bad post draws in a lot of races. Messenger Stake sets a track record at Yonkers, draws the 8-hole in the final and just misses and loses by a neck or by a head. And he was out there the whole entire time, and he just wouldn't give up. So it's stuff like that. I think he's a very handy horse. I'm excited. I'm breeding to him. I'm super excited for it, too.
Yeah, who are you breeding to him?
I got a few, actually. I bought one of the ones that I just got recently was one that Carmen Asiello had, which is Exhilarated.
Oh, yeah.
So they're both 2018 O'Brien winners. Yep. She was the older pacing mare, and he was a 3-year-old colt, and we're breeding the two of them over at Winback. And
I saw on social media this week, it looks like there's some glasses to cheers for some people that maybe breed to Jimmy Freight.
Yeah, I think Winback's having an open house coming up here soon. All the stallions are back, and so I did that for them for their big stallion thing, and I usually do something, and so I got that ready for them, for people that head over there for their open house.
And check him out on social media too, because there's a chance for everybody to win. There are prizes galore. Your generosity is unbelievable, and you're doing such a great job. Tell me quickly how a guy can go from being an unhappy plumber to this marketing guru. As I think it's safe to call you that. Was marketing something that was always in your blood?
It was. I always did something. I had my own handicapping websites back in the day, and this is when I was doing plumbing. And I remember the guys I used to work with from the sheet metal companies and stuff, they would tell me all the time, they're like, this is probably not for you, this plumbing thing, because you're always on the phone, you're talking, advertising and handicapping and stuff like that. And then just one day, I literally, I'll never forget, I was working at an old age home. We were doing a brand new old age home out in Bowmanville, and I put my tools in the trunk of my car, and I said, that's it, I'm done. And that was it. I did it, quit a job that was paying very well. And just it was months before I landed a job with an online advertising company that had moved from California to Toronto. Landed a job there, was there a few months, and I got a very big role there at the company after a few months. 5 years later, I went off on my own, and that company actually contracts me now to sell all their advertising. They never replaced my position, and here we are,
You know who could use some marketing help? The Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, the Cleveland Browns could use a lot of...
I'm not rubbing it in.
I think they could use a lot of help.
I'm not rubbing it in. I'm just saying, hey, they could use a little bit of... Well, I mean, they could use a lot of help in other ways. But this, maybe you should contact them too. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions here. First off, how many horses do you have expected to race this year?
I have 14 horses. 14 horses that should be racing this year. We're always looking for horses to race. I sent 2 of my fillies that I had that were racing here. I sent them already to breed. Yep. So that's 2 less that are racing, so we have to pick something up. I harass Richard pretty much every day to tell me to find me something. So we should have a few more horses racing here pretty soon.
I'm sure you're aware of it, but next year there'll be a 2-year-old by the name of Jenny Freight,
right,
who's a full sister. Are you going to maybe keep your ear to the ground and then see how this filly's training down, perhaps? Or are you already involved in this filly?
You probably will see her at Mohawk.
Okay, all right. I think that maybe tells the story right there. Right. Do you have a Mohawk Million horse?
I don't have a Mohawk Million horse. I don't really buy trotters. I try to buy trotters. This year I've experimented and I've bought different horses and put them in different stables and different barns. I have some over with Blake McIntosh, with Scott McEnany. So I'm hoping to find something, and if it's not this year, I can buy into stuff. I've talked to Marcus Melander. I've talked to a bunch of those guys that want me to get involved. But there was so much focus on Jimmy Freight going to stud this year that I didn't want to use up all my resources or my time to try to get involved with the Mohawk Million. But I think you probably next year might see me here doing that, or possibly even this year if I buy into something.
You're a visionary, so final question I'll ask you. One thing you would like to see changed in our sport of horse racing?
That's difficult. We need a few things changed, but the one thing coming from the marketing background, I believe that we need a little bit more advertising and marketing. I think, it's difficult because every track, every state, if they focus on their own, I think it's because money is a real big issue. But what WEG is doing right now, I'm pretty excited about it. I see a lot of potential here. I know they want to be, they want to promote their, the Woodbine and Mohawk, and they're doing a very good job with it. And, being self-sustainable and things like that. I believe it's going to happen here. The handle's getting stronger. We're getting people to the racetrack, and the purses look pretty good right now. I think that if we can, channel a little bit more advertising and focus a little bit more bringing the people into Ontario racing, I think Ontario racing's got a good product. I think we should just channel it, look at the positives, and see what we can do to market the product. There is a lot of ideas out there. Stuff that I'm doing is very grassroots type of advertising, but it doesn't mean you can't bring people using the grassroots way of thinking. We haven't really pushed the product for many, many years. So even if we go in grassroots and start small, we can still get people to the racetrack. I'm confident of it. It's no different. People love to spend money and like entertainment. If we can give it to them, they'll come.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I commend you on everything you're doing. Keep it up. I think we'd all be better for it if we just try to keep up with what you're doing. Great job. Continued success, buddy. Thank you for stopping by.
Awesome, thank you.
Looking forward to the Jimmy Freight Stakes in 2023, and we'll see you around. Stop by anytime.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you to Adriano Sorella. We'll take a short time out. We'll come back, and I'll set up tonight's Saturday program here at snowy Mohawk Park.